Yeah, as you can see, it basically rained from like 2 o'clock to, I don't know, like 7 o'clock at night. So I wasn't able to get out enough content to have a video out on the water for you guys. So obviously I'm gonna be doing something different today. All right, let's get right on into it. So starting out with the bag itself, it's a Sosin bag. I got this off of Amazon a while back. It's for a school backpack, but I don't know, it just turned into my fishing bag after a while, so that's where that came from. All right, so starting off with the outside of the backpack, we have a Berkeley digital scale. It goes up to 50 pounds. So yeah, we got the Berkeley scale, and then in this side pocket, come on. In this side pocket, we've got some Kroger brand sunscreen. We've got the special sauce. This is oil and garlic powder. If you notice you're getting short striked on all your soft plastics, put some of that on it. They will hold on. And then we've just got a crappie box full of, you know, tiny grubs, stuff like that. Crappie magnets. These weird tubes by Eagle Claw. Yeah, that's basically what we got in there. All right. And now let's go to what we've got on the outside. This is the chesty mount for the camera, you know, so it can record videos on the water, stuff like that. It's not GoPro brand, but it's I mean, it's pretty good. Not the best. This is made of plastic, but I mean, I've not had problems with it yet, so. So now we're gonna get into the very front pocket right here. All right. I'm actually gonna move the bag down here so that you guys can see a little bit better. All right. So starting off, we have a Ozark trail fillet knife, and I rarely ever actually use this for filleting. It's more of just a knife that I have. It's, you know, it's pretty good. I mostly use it to cut my line. So if I need to cut my line for whatever reason, I just open up to about right there and just slide the line right through. It comes with this little plastic sheath. Yeah, just about it. All right, and now on to the back pocket. We've got some KVD Perfect plastics. Now this isn't just KVD Perfect plastics. This is all my finesse worms and stuff like that. So we've got, these are Zoom Baby finesse worms. You know, those are about, I don't know, 4 inches maybe. And then we've got some Zoom ribbon tail worms. Again, probably about, I don't know, and probably also about 4 inches without the tail extended. And then we got the KVD Perfect Plastic finesse worms. These are about 6 inches. And I've caught a ton of fish. I've caught a ton of fish on these recently, so these have been pretty much what I've been using. Those are all at the top. All right, next we have all my smaller packs of soft plastics. So we got, in here we've got some Zoom Lizards 6-inch, and then we've got the Havoc Hawk Hog, and those are, I think, yeah, 5-inch. I'll go ahead and take them out and show you. I can get the package open. So yeah, here's the Zoom Lizard. You know, just your standard lizard. I use these most of the time in the spring. Not really much in the summer. Maybe I should try it out, you never really know. And then here's the Hawk Hog, sort of the same type of deal as the Zoom Lizard, just like a creature bait. This sort of looks like a lizard, or I guess like a really long craw or something like that. They don't really replicate anything in exact. It sort of covers a broad spectrum. Alright, and then we got this isn't actually what it says it is. These are Zoom Z Craws, and these are a discontinued brand called Bass Magic, I think. And I mean, they're pretty good, but you can't really find them anywhere except for places that buy discontinued items in overstock. I'm not gonna take those out, but you can sort of see exactly what they look like. All right, and then we got some 4-inch Zoom dead ringers in the watermelon chartreuse color. I use these mostly for dingy water. Anytime that, you know, the water clarity is not as good, it's sort of still a natural color, but then you get the chartreuse tail that sort of kicks and, you know, does its thing. All right, next we've got the Havoc Craw Fatty, and these mostly I'm not going to be using as a trailer because of how big they are. Most of the time these are going on a Texas rig by themselves, or like, I don't know. Sometimes I'll tilt them on their side and rip off one of the claws and use them as like a trailer for like a chatterbait or something like that. But all right, next we got the Strike King River Bugs in the green pumpkin color. And let's see. Let's take these out. Now this is my main trailer because, you know, they're smaller. They've still got more of a realistic looking, I don't know what you call it, more realistic looking profile. The claws are attached in the package. You gotta rip those apart. And they've got a licorice scent. I know you can't smell them, but they have a licorice scent automatically. All right, next, these aren't actually Strike King. These are Berkeley Pit Boss Juniors, I think. And I'll use these for like a black and blue jig trailer. I mean, you can sort of see those through the package pretty well, so I'm not gonna take those out. But yeah, they're in the 4-inch length there. I mean, it's a pretty good trailer. All right, next we have 2 packs of Strike King Cincos. I got one in watermelon chartreuse and then one in watermelon black. So this one obviously is, you know, just your straight watermelon that you're used to. And then these have like it's like a swirl almost. And these work really good for when like the bass or wherever you're fishing is really pressured. And but you want that natural, but the water's also dingy, so you want them to be able to see it. This is what I would use right there. And these are pretty good. They're not as good as like the Gary Yamamoto's, but they're cheaper. They're only $3 a pack as opposed to almost $7 a pack. And comes with 7 instead of 6, so that's what we got there. And then in this bag, it's just my assortment of flukes. So I've got, you know, some Super Fluke, the regular size. I've got some Super Fluke Junior. I've got some of these weird bluegill paddle tails that are pretty weird that I barely ever use, but I still take. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this soft plastic section. Now we're gonna move on to the stuff that you guys really want to see. All right, next up is gonna be my terminal tackle box, and this one is a Bass Mafia waterproof box. And I like the waterproof box for the terminal tackle because if you get one thing wet in here, whether that be just from like a drop of sweat or something like that, and one of these hooks rusts, that entire section is going to rust, and it could carry over all the way into all the other ones. So I don't like to take my chances, so I went with the Bass Mafia box. And inside up top in these 3 rows, we got some different size treble hooks that I mostly just use for replacing on crankbaits when their hooks go bad. I got the size 2, size 4, and size 6. So you got those. And then this is my bag of miscellaneous weights. It's got bullet weights, egg sinkers, some drop shot weights, nail weights. Basically any type of weight that you would really need when you're out there in the water. And then under that, got a pack of dual lock snaps. I only got 2 left in the package, but Yeah, they're size 1, and they do pretty well. And I don't really use those much anymore because going up to here, I've got barrel soles now, and these are easier to open, and they also don't get tangled up as much and cause as many line twists because the bait can spin freely because of how these work. And then under that, I've got some tiny panfish hooks that I need to get some bluegill, or for whatever reason I can do it that way. And then there's some more bigger panfish hooks and some more panfish hooks. I don't know why I have so many of these. I guess I honestly couldn't tell you. When I use some of these sometimes for crappie to mount like these type of baits on, but there, to be honest with you, there's no other reason why I have so many panfish hooks. Alright, and then in this compartment right here, in the center, we've got some Ewg Style Hooks. I don't have that many of them, but you know, you don't really need a ton of them because I don't really lose stuff all that often. I don't know why. I'm pretty good at being able to retrieve my baits to get hung on something. And then over here on this right side, we've got some more straight shank worm hooks. And these are offset, so this doesn't line up with this part right here. So you've got, you know, this doesn't line up over here. So if for whatever reason you wanted that, you could have it. I usually use this to rig like the lizard and anything that's really thin and I don't want a ton of bulk. These, for the most part, I'm going to be wanting to rig stuff like craws or like big creature baits on. And then right here, I've got my Wacky Style hooks. So basically your Cinco goes on the rubber band right here. And then you've got, you know, just a normal Wacky rig hook. And right here in this middle compartment, I have a whole assortment of bigger style hooks and like trailer hooks, stuff like that. I'll use these anytime I'm using live bait for anything bigger like bass, maybe catfish. But yeah, just some bigger style hooks. And then right here, I've got my custom-made shaky head hooks. So they sit like that, basically perfectly on the bottom, and then you got your worm or whatever going off there. I've got, you know, slightly bigger size, so these are, you know, just more weight. I needed to really lob them out there. And then over here, I've got a rubber band. Oh, that's great. Basically all my jig head, or yeah, my jig heads. So these are a little bit bigger. I use these for the normal size zoom flukes. And then these smaller ones I'll mostly use for either the small flukes or any type of like crappie bait that I had or anything like that. All right, next up is gonna be my top water box. And this is just a Plano, I don't remember the series, but it's just one of those cheap Plano boxes. But I've taken a Dremel right here and I've drilled out holes so that I have a perforated box. And that, for the most part, is for my hollow body frogs, because these can hold water. So if there's water inside of these, I want it to be able to drain out and not have problems with that. So if it rains, this is the box that I've got to take out all my baits and set them on a towel. But I'd rather have that situation, which doesn't happen often, rather than, you know, leaving this box somewhere and all this water draining out and rusting my hooks. So speaking of hollow body frogs, these I got at Ollie's for like $4, I think. And they're just normal, you know, they got the cut mouth. I got a smaller one that's just a yellow with a white bottom, and this one which is all black. You know, just to mimic frog, bait fish on the top, something like that. All right, and then I've got these two giant Red Devil spoons, or Red Eye Wiggler, that my grandpa gave me. I don't ever actually fish these, but it's nice to have in my tackle box for if I need them for whatever reason. I don't know, I guess pike or muskie or something would eat this, but I don't see a bass eating a spoon this big. I mean, it could happen, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. And then we've got a Ozark Trail, 1/3 ounce pop, I think a 1/3 ounce popper. And use this for like targeted cast, you know, cast it out wherever I want to and give it a couple pops and then retrieve it back in, you know, try different targets that way. This I mostly use in the spring just cause, you know, more specifically the pre-spawn, when those fish are starting to move up onto their beds, that's going to be your last chance before they're spawning that they're actually going to be feeding and not protecting. So this could mimic a cricket or, you know, some other type of frog on the surface, just a different, more loud approach to a soft body frog. And then over here we have an assortment of Buzzbaits. I have, let's see, we got 2 Booyah Squelcher Buzzbaits. They are both in 1/2 ounce. This one I have a trailer hook on, but I didn't put one on this because this is just my backup for if for some reason they're hitting the Booyah Buzzbaits a ton that day and I lose one. You know, it's the same thing. All right. And then over here, I don't actually remember what brand this is. I think this is a Booyah, but it's a different series Buzzbait, I think. I don't know, I'm pretty sure, but this is just a black Buzzbait, you know, contrast on the sunny days, something like that, when the water is dingy. And then here we have a $1 Walmart Buzzbait with the skirt fell off. You guys know the $1 Buzzbaits do. And I got a trailer hook and a Arky 2-inch grub, split tail grub on the back. Sort of looks like a frog going through the water. I don't use Buzzbaits all that often, but I have them, you know, for the day that I throw them and I catch that 10-pounder on them. All right, and I actually forgot this was on one of my rods, but it is a Hedon, something like that, Super Spook Junior on the injured shad pattern. So I'll throw this out, mostly starting now, you know, in the early to mid-summer sort of section, because they're still going to be feeding, but you know, bait fish can start dying and a lot of heat, and this sort of mimics one on the surface. It's sort of got that, you know, zigzag walk the dog action. And yeah, I actually just got this bait, so it's a new one. That's why it looks so pretty. It has no scratches or anything like that on it. All right, next up we've got my jig box, or jig box for the most part. And let's see, where do we start? I guess we'll start down here. This is a $2 Arky jig. So these are pretty cheap, but I like this color a lot because it's super natural, but it also has some of that orange flash. So it's, again, something that's flashy and the fish are going to see, but it's not going to turn them away as, you know, as much as something that's, you know, I don't know, like bright green or something like that. So I like to throw these. It's so new and it doesn't have a trailer on it because I lost my last one, so I had to go pick up another one. And that's why that's in here, like that. All right, and then next up we got a Strike King jig. Now this one was like $3, $3 to $4, I think. And it's a sort of just like a watermelon color. But all those flecks that you see in there, those things illuminate in the water. Like, they get so bright. And then I got one of those Craw fatty things on here as a trailer. And that's mostly just to match the color of the, you know, the flecks that are in the jig skirt. And I'll also throw this sort of in, I'll throw this closer to clear water. But if it's still got a little bit of stain on it, I'll throw this just to give it a little bit of flash. I've gotten a couple hits on it. Nothing crazy. It's got the rattles. Yeah, it's the Strike King. Alright, next is a jig from Stanley Jigs. And this jig I think retails for like $4 to $5, something like that, I think. No, it's just a straight black, and then for a trailer, I've got one of the Zoom Super Salt Z Craws. Just it's got, you know, black with red flecks, so it's got a little bit of that red to mimic the Craw. And this also has a rattle on the bottom. Yeah, it's a casting jig, so I'll throw this out, you know, as far as I can, and it's versatile, so you know you can fish it like a swim jig. You can fish it like a football jig. It does everything, not the best, but it does everything in an okay manner, so you can basically fish this however you need to. Alright, next we've got another jig from Stanley Jigs. This is a black and blue with one of those Pit Boss Craws on it. It's got the blue flecks to match the, you know, the little streaks of blue inside the jig. It's got a pretty stiff skirt, but nothing that'll really impede your hook set. If a bass comes up and grabs this thing, you know, that when you jerk that skirt's going down. But I like these because basically, if you run this over any type of wood or anything like that, that guard, if you flare it out like that, it's gonna block it. I've almost never gotten a jig like this hung when I flare out the skirt like that. All right, next up, coming down here, I've got some Crappie Buster Shad scales. And it's got like a sort of a weird, you know, dead fish scent to it. And then it goes on gold, but has the silver flakes in it. The gold sort of disappears in the water. And that silver is gonna give it a little bit more flash on something like a fluke that doesn't have flecks or anything like that. That's gonna give it a little bit more flash. And then we've got some Crazy Glue. I mostly use this for my trailers. So if I notice a trailer is falling off my jig or something like that a bunch, then I'll put just a tiny dot of glue onto the hook before I put the trailer on. And this, I mean, it doesn't really harm your hook or your bait or anything like that. And alright, so my camera stopped recording. So we're gonna go ahead and get through this part right here before I run out of storage. And so right here we got a Z-Man chatterbait. I like these better than the jackhammers, mostly just because this blade doesn't get hung up and stuff as much. It's just got a paddle tail swim bait on the back. And we got a Lunker Hunt chatterbait, and it has a one of those Craw fatty trailers. As you can see right there, I cut off one of the claws, so that's sort of got the action of a fish tail. And this one's a little more naturally colored for, you know, when the water's a little bit clearer. It's a swim jig head. And then here we got our spinnerbaits. I got one that's larger. I like to run the larger ones without a skirt. I find that the skirt sort of, I don't know, impedes the action of the paddle tails in the larger ones. And then I've got Strike King micro jig, or not micro jig, micro spinner. And in here we've got just a basic rooster tail inline spinner. And then up there we've got a mess of cut up Cincos and stuff like that I use for Ned rigs in the winter. So whenever, you know, it starts to get really cold, I'll have all my Cincos and stuff from the summer to be able to fish Ned rigs and not have to buy any. Alright guys, and now for probably the most exciting part of any tackle bag or tackle box, the hard baits. Alright, so I guess we'll start up here at the top. These are chase bait rip snorters, and they're actually expensive for what they are. I think they're like $12.50 new. So, but basically it's just a soft-bodied lipless crankbait, and it's weedless. So this sort of this hook right here gets embedded right here in this slot, and until something compresses that, that hook isn't coming out at all. And you've got this underspin to give it a little bit more action, you know, sort of like you would have like a willow leaf in the center blade. And got a shad pattern, and then I got this, which is obviously purple, but I'll use this in dingier water just so it's something to contrast with the very, very dark water. All right, and now we're gonna move on to a lipless that I don't know the brand, mostly because I found this in a fish's mouth. So I was fishing with I think it was like a jig with a craw, and I pulled out a fish that was like, I don't know, maybe a pound, and it had this stuck in its throat. And this treble hook was lodged like all the way back there. And so the fish ended up dying. I gave it to someone that was trying to eat. And like I said, it wasn't that big of a fish. And didn't want his life to go to waste. And I got this crankbait out of it. He would have died anyway if I didn't take the crankbait out of his mouth. He just wouldn't have been able to eat the right way. But yeah, it's like a, like a sunfish pattern. And it's pretty good action, pretty alright sound. It's not, you know, the best crankbait in the world, but it's gotten the job done for me. And then here is the crankbait that I've been swearing by recently. This is a Bill Lewis rattle trap in the gizzard shad pattern. I mean, this crankbait works in clear water, dingy water. Like, this crankbait will work anywhere, because that sound in dingy water, fish are going to easily be able to hear it. And then once they get close enough, they'll be able to see it, and it looks just like the shad in my local lake. So this has been the crankbait that has caught me so many fish recently. All right, and then the next lipless we got is a sort of a green sunfish bluegill pattern. I got this one at Ollie's. This is actually a discontinued lipless crankbait from a knockoff Lucky Craft brand from Japan. But it's not the best crankbait in the world, but it gets the job done. It has good action. It pulls out larger fish most of the time just because of the size of it. I think the smallest fish you can probably catch on this thing is probably like 1.5 pounds. I mean, this is not the crankbait you want to throw if you're going for smaller fish or pond fishing. But anyways, now we're gonna move on to this Smithwick jerkbait. It's a suspending jerkbait. Sort of got like a perch bluegill type of weird color. It's clear down here, so it's worked all right. It's not the best jerkbait in the world, but I got this at Ollie's for like $4 rather than the 10 that you probably would pay. So it's gotten the job done. Changed the front hook to a red one, as you know I do with 90% of my crankbaits. But yeah. And then right here we have a Ozark Trail crankbait. Now this one is $2 at Walmart, but it's, for the price, this is a really good jerkbait if you got a lot of minnows and stuff like that in your water. I mean, this looks just like a large minnow or like a shine or something like that. It's 2 to 4 feet, so especially great for the fall when those fish are push up shallow. And yeah, it's what I caught my first ever largemouth bass on. All right, and now moving down into our normal crankbaits. These are 2 deep diving crankbaits. Let's see if I can get them apart. Whew. Okay. This is a flicker shad. I think it's by Berkeley. And it's sort of got the normal shad coloring, but it's also got a bright orange belly and the black top. And I find this really good to throw in the summer if you're on a boat, especially, because you can't really lob this thing that far from the bank. But if you can get this into deep water and you can get this lip to start making this thing dive, then you got yourself a small presentation, those finicky bass, and you're gonna be able to get them done on this. And then right here we have a sort of a medium diving crankbait by Bait Labs. And this is the Ultimate Strike Shad, I think. I got this in a Monster Bass box. And it's pretty good crankbait. Caught me a couple fish so far. I haven't thrown it all that much, but the days I have thrown it, it's gotten the job done. But yeah, it's got sort of a, it's a perch color, but I find it to mimic the green sunfish in my lake pretty well. So when I first got this on my Monster Bass box, I was looking at it like, wow, this is not gonna work. Why did he give me this? There's no perch in Georgia, or at least in the lakes I fish in. But no, it definitely surprised me in terms of what this thing could do. All right, and now moving on to these two. These two are both Ozark trail crankbaits. Both were $2, and they're both in like a Craw pattern. Not really much to say there. They do all right for the price that you pay, and if I lose them, then you know that's not much money going down the drain. And then we have this micro crankbait. I think this is by Cream. I mean, like, this thing it's tiny. I use this mostly to catch larger bluegill or smaller bass, but it works for how light it is. It actually casts not too bad. You're obviously not going to get it as far as you will like a blade bait or a rattle trap, something like that, but it definitely works. Probably, I'd say probably 1/16 ounce, probably the weight. I'd definitely throw it on lighter spinning gear though. You're not going to want to throw this on a bait caster. And then, don't exactly remember the brand. It has an X on the bottom. I don't think this is by X Zone. I don't think they sell hard baits, but it's just a squirrel bow crankbait. Dives between 4 and 6 feet in a shad pattern. I find this to work the best in the fall when the bass are chasing around those bait fish, really starting to fatten up before winter. It's a pretty small size, so if bass are finicky that day or the bass in your lake aren't that big, this is what I would be throwing. And then for the last baits I have in my tackle bag, I have 2 Berkeley Pit Bulls 7.5. So these dive 7.5 feet, and I have one in a natural shad pattern, and this is what you'll want to throw. The water is really clear and you're not really fighting any stain or anything like that, and this will pull out some hogs for real. I mean, like, the size of the shad, you're only gonna get a bigger bass to hit this. And then I have one that's the exact same thing, but it's in more of a brighter shad pattern. So this is what I would be throwing in my stained water, anything like that, to where, you know, fish could see it from a little bit farther away, and still get the same action, still pretty realistic in terms of how it looks. And yeah. Alright, and the last thing that I forgot to put when I was going through my other gear is a pair of locking forceps. And I like to use these over pliers, mostly because I find myself when I'm using pliers that have like a spring in it or whatever, that I can't really lock the blade down and just leave it if I need to. So that's why I like to use the locking forceps for most uses. And then the last thing that I ever carry around with me is going to be a nice little sheath knife. This is by Camillus, and it's a pretty good knife. I mean, it's not the best, but for the price that I paid for it, it does the job. It gets, you know, gets the work done, whatever. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, go ahead and leave a comment. Tell me what your favorite bait to throw in the summer is down in the comment section below. And subscribe if you haven't already. It's free. And like the video if you liked it. If you didn't like the video, dislike it, go down in the comments and tell me why. All right, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.